英語ってやっぱ頭のいい人しか喋れるようにならないんだよな。If you think like this, you must watch this video. If you wanna speak English so bad, you gotta change your way of thinking. Otherwise, you'll never get what you want. What up, tuners? Welcome to my school. It's Sunao here. Today, I'd like to talk about how I got my current level of English fluency. I don't know if the way I learned English was the best or most efficient, but I can communicate with native speakers without any problems now. So I hope this video helps some of you who wanna speak English but don't have enough confidence in yourself to become awesome English speakers. Before I became able to speak fluent English, I didn't even know shadowing, phonics, redaction, and linking, all of which are important for efficient English language learning. But somehow I made it. In this video, what I want to tell you is not the most efficient way or the best way to learn English. I mean, of course, I'll show how I learned English, the detail. But what I really want to tell you is everybody can speak English. I hope some of them are motivated or encouraged by this video and not studying English but enjoying English. Okay, let's dive in. I grew up in the rural area of Nagano Prefecture, completely isolated from English. I lived in the mountains where bears would come out in front of my house. And my junior high school was so far away that it took 4 to 5 hours to walk there. Of course, I didn't walk there. I took the bus. But even the bus got discontinued because only very few people used the bus when I was in my third year of junior high school. So the city started offering taxis for students like me. I was lucky to have that, but I also wished I could walk home with my friends like normal kids. Anyway, being in the countryside, I didn't know anything about English except what I learned in school. Oh, I still remember loving Full House when it was on an educational TV program. NHK ね. But of course I only watched the Japanese dub. So up until this point, my English skills were probably similar to or maybe even worse than most of you guys. Then I went to local high school in my hometown, but my home situation got a little worse and I started behaving badly. I only went to classes right up to the line where I wouldn't be expelled. And I usually went home before noon. In my second year of high school, I got a shocking hensachi of 27 on a certain subject's exam. Even I was surprised that I was like, oh, I need to get this together, which I didn't. Of course, I was at the very bottom of my class and I had zero interest in studying. This picture is actually from back in the day. During my third year of high school, my home teacher talked to me about career counseling. Even though my teacher had asked me multiple times before, I had been avoiding the conversation. It's not that I didn't like my teacher. Actually, I liked him. I was just too lazy to go. I was that lazy. So, I had a discussion with my homeroom teacher about my future. Of course, I didn't have any particular idea, so my teacher suggested, if you don't have anything in mind, how about going on to university? I didn't want to work either, so I just said, yeah. However, my question was, where to begin? It was a very natural question because I wasn't studying nothing, literally nothing. I realized how stupid I was doing nothing for 2 years. 2 years! Anyway, he offered me a junior high school level English vocabulary book because he was an English teacher and said, start from this one. The book only covered the very basics of English vocabulary. When I got home and started looking over the book, I was kind of surprised that I still knew about like 60 to 70% of the words from my English classes in junior high school. Learning can be fun once you start to understand things. The next day, I went back to him and told him I understood about 60 to 70% of the words. He replied like, oh, that's good to hear. But you should try to understand everything on the book perfectly before moving on. From there, I focused on learning how to use words with multiple meanings as well as memorizing unfamiliar vocabulary until it really sticks into my brain. Since I already knew some words, it didn't take much time to learn all the vocabulary in the book. It's been a long story, but that's how my English journey began. Seriously, I studied from the junior high school level. If you are like me and haven't studied English since junior high school, the first thing you should do is buy a vocabulary book and master the book. Imagine you are the best cook in town. No matter how good a cook you are, you can't cook without ingredients. First, you need to collect your ingredients, then start cooking. In the case of English, the ingredients are words, vocabulary. After that, I spent a half year studying English for getting into university and acquired a high school level vocabulary and grammar for the most part. And what I used for that is actually just these two books. These are the only books I have used seriously so far, besides the first junior high school level vocabulary book. This is more than enough. Sometimes there are people who use many vocabulary and grammar books, but I don't recommend it. I think it's better to master one book than to study various books, because you can actually focus on it. When it comes to English conversation skills, you don't need to understand high school English perfectly. Just when you see it, you notice like, oh, I've seen this vocabulary, I've seen this phrase or grammar somewhere. This level is totally fine. Because if you need them, you'll actually learn it from the conversation. And there are a lot of vocabulary and grammar which you rarely use in the natural conversation. So focus on what you really need first. Like junior high school English level, also you can always go back to review them when you need them, right? If you understand junior high school English, you will hardly have trouble with everyday English conversation. If you understand high school English, you will hardly have any difficulty in English conversation. So, if you want to have a conversation in English, you must master junior high school English, English vocabulary, and grammar thoroughly. If you guys need it, I'm willing to make a video about it, like how to study vocabulary and grammar, kind of things, so let me know. If you understand junior high or even high school level English but still struggle to understand spoken conversations, it may be because your English is too focused on textbook English. Let's work on developing your conversational English. I'll share with you how I learned to use English in everyday conversation. Then I'll talk about how to study English conversation from here. After entering university, when I was a sophomore in university, I joined a volunteer program to support exchange students who came to Japan. We helped them with their daily life and also we helped them as language exchange partners too. During that time, I got to meet people from Europe and became really interested in their culture and how it differed from Japan. This experience actually made me want to live abroad. So I decided to study in the United States, the country that interested me the most. I wasn't from a rich family, so I couldn't just say, oh, I want to study abroad and have my own way. I had to make money myself for the tuition and living expenses. So I worked at least 12 to 15 hours a day, 7 days a week, almost every day. It's funny to think back on it now. My living expenses were 30,000 yen a month, which included food, electricity, gas, and water bills. I majored in chemistry, so English wasn't something I needed to learn for my units. So I had to juggle work, English studies, my school tests and reports. I didn't have time and I didn't have money. But I did it. When you want to achieve something, there is no point in looking for excuses why you can't. So during my breaks at work, I studied for tests. And during meals, I listened to English as much as possible, making sure to use my free time effectively for studying. I'm sharing this because there are endless excuses not to do something. For example, I have too much work to do. I have exams and a test. I have to take care of my family. If you truly want to do something, you'll make time for it. During my breaks at work, I studied for exam, and during meals, I listened to English. I made use of any free time I had to study. If you are watching this video and always looking for reasons not to do something, try to find reasons to do it instead. Why do you want to learn English? Maybe to make foreign friends, or to work overseas, or to find a boyfriend or girlfriend. Anything. Let's focus on the reasons to do it instead of the reasons not to do it. For me, I wanted to go to the States so bad. That was my reason. Simple. And it was all I needed. During this time, what I was focused on in my English studies was simply learning natural everyday conversation. Because we have been learning English, but we Japanese haven't been practicing using it. But when you go to the United States, you have to speak English. So basically, I busted my butt practicing to all the English I've learned into something I could actually use in everyday conversation. There are two main things I actually did to improve my English. First, I started watching videos of native speakers talking about all sorts of things. And second, I tried talking to myself in English. Just to practice putting my thoughts into words. I know it sounds silly, but it really helped me to get used to English. In English conversation, practicing speaking is very important, but practicing listening is equally important. So I first focused on thoroughly inputting English. What I did was very simple. I watched English movies and series with English subtitles over and over again. At first, even with English subtitles, I couldn't understand anything. I had a basic understanding of junior high school and high school English level, but it was still hard to understand. So for some reason, I started watching the Japanese version of an anime called Yokai Watchi in Japanese, which had English subtitles. It was made for kids, so the phrases were pretty basic and easy to understand. After I got used to it, I switched to watching movies and series in English with English subtitles. The ones I watched the most were Skins and the Harry Potter series. Skins is actually, I just picked a random video that appeared on YouTube. Honestly, I was so ignorant back then. I ended up watching British English series and movies instead of American ones, even though I knew I was going to the United States. I actually had no one to practice speaking with, so I just talked to myself in English. I basically practiced describing my actions in English, like getting out of bed. I'm so lazy today. Or, oh, I have to go to school. Like kind of things. I tried to come up with English phrases on the spot for whatever I was thinking. Nowadays, it's so much easier to study with all the resources available online. After doing this for about 10 months, I saved up enough money and took a year from my university in Japan to study abroad. I studied abroad in the States for about a year, and there were three main things I did to learn English. First, I attended language school. Second, continue practicing talking to myself in English. Third, talk to foreigners as much as possible. The most important part is definitely the last one. The biggest advantage of studying abroad is being able to experience the local people and the culture firsthand. Honestly, I think it's possible to study English in Japan, and there are plenty of people who become fluent in English without leaving Japan. But I think understanding values and ways of thinking is difficult without actually being in the country. I recommend studying abroad because English is just one of many communication tools. Not the only one. If you want to become real friends with foreigners, there are many things you need to understand besides just English. Even there are many Japanese people who speak really fluent English, but still struggle with communication in English. I think this is because they spend too much time studying English and forget the importance of understanding the person they are communicating with. So, on my weekends, I tried to hang out with as many foreign friends as possible. Also, I found a room through a local website and ended up sharing it with Americans. That's how I got the opportunity to exchange ideas and perspectives with people from various countries. in English. Plus, since I was kind of broke, so I had to look for cheaper options. Off the record, by the way. By doing like this, I was able to improve my English skills and expand my perspective. When I first arrived in the States, I couldn't even order a sandwich at Subway. But after a year, I was able to choose toppings. I was so proud of myself. So right now, I'm living in Japan and I mainly keep up with my English skills through social media and online English lessons. When you share information like posting videos on social media, you get many questions. Some of them are about things that you don't even know, so researching and sharing helps you learn too. It's also a good way to connect with foreign creators, plus recording yourself helps you review your English skills. So I highly recommend recording and posting videos of yourself speaking English on social media as a way to practice English and meet new people. And also, I do online English lessons too. It costs money, but it's worth it to be able to ask questions about English without any hesitation. I mean, you can make foreign friends and ask English questions, but remember, some of them work as English teachers in Japan and they don't want to work for free or on weekends, right? Each online English lesson only costs 500 to 1000 yen, so I think it's a good value to pay. To sum up, what we talked about today, what I have done for learning English is I studied the vocabulary and the grammar taught in junior high and high school. I used to do English input by watching YouTube and movies. I sometimes still do. I practice the output by talking to myself. Oh, I still sometimes do this one too. I had conversations with foreigners to improve my communication skills, using social media to meet people. Additionally, I take online English lessons to improve my English skills further. Like I said at the beginning, I don't think this is the best or most efficient way to learn English. There are definitely better ways to learn the vocabulary, grammar, listening skills, speaking skills. I was studying British English. Don't trust me. What I want to tell you in this video is that even someone like me, like him, like me, who hardly went to school and almost dropped out, can learn to speak English. You don't have to be smart or have a high IQ to be able to speak English. The most important thing is to enjoy the process and keep doing it. And please don't forget that English is just a communication tool. No matter how fluent you are, it's meaningless if you can't communicate well. So make sure to understand and be considerate of each other. If this guy can do it, of course you can do it. Guys, you got this. Bye to us.